Your first reaction is confusion. Why does this exist? Where does it come from? To do good. The urge to do evil has plagued human history. If you believe we live in a world under divine control, why should evil exist at all?
Make an argument that without religion, it's a lot more horrible.
Hamza, of all the Christian philosophers that I have spoken to, all but one, to my recollection, would vehemently fight with me when I would say, is God all-powerful? Is God all-knowledgeable? Is there evil in the world? Yes, 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 you believe in God. Then God created evil. I mean, I'm trying to be a very simple approach to it. And I'd get fights back and never make any progress. There was one who was different from that, who said that there's no way to get out of that God created evil, and went through the process. Right. I really don't know the Islamic view of whether God created evil.
Bismillah. So Muslims believe that there's something called the qadar, which is traditionally translated as fate, destiny, but the root meaning of it is the idea of measuring something out. So there's an idea that God has measured everything out. He's given us enough rope to save us or hang us. And so moral evil is a result of the sinfulness of human beings. So what comes from that? And there's also an understanding that a lot of natural evils are either one of two things, that God is, there's a punishment that could be involved. It's not for us to decide, but it could be a punishment, or it could be an elevation in rank, and to take martyrs amongst them. For instance, our Prophet said that anybody that dies from a house collapsing on him is a martyr. It's a martyr's death, so they go straight to heaven. So all the people that died in the earthquake by their houses collapsing on them, they're considered martyrs. And also dying of sudden death is a martyr's death, like in a car accident, falling from your animal. Dying from like stomach cancer or something like that is a martyr's death. So there are many deaths, the Prophet said, that are martyr's deaths because of the intensity of the death, and also the lack of time that sometimes that people have to make amends and do these things. So I think we believe that God created everything, but we don't attribute evil to God as a kind of just appropriateness. So we have a formula that the Prophet gave us that said, all of good is in your presence and evil is not attributed to you. But we believe that evil is part of God's creation. God obviously created the evil in the world by allowing it to happen if it's moral evil, and then by the events of natural evil that are clearly created by God.
Yeah, so on the moral evil, God certainly allows it, and because if you believe in God and it's happening, then it's obvious that God allows it if you still want to believe in God. But you roll it back to say, when God created the universe, did God know that evil would occur?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, so-called open theology in the Christian tradition, modern today, not mainstream, but not insignificant, would say that the future is open, and God is omniscient, that God knows everything that can be known, right. But the future cannot be known because it hasn't occurred yet. Right. So we're not undercutting God's omniscience, because we're saying that, like, can God lift a rock that's too heavy to
logical inconsistency.
Yeah, logical inconsistency. So there's no undermining of God with a logical inconsistency. So they say the future is a logical inconsistency to know. So that's a coherent explanation. Right. It may not be satisfying to you, but it's a lot, or to anyone. But it's a logical consideration.
Well, there's a famous saint in Turkey who had his students, and he wanted to appoint somebody to follow him. So he asked all his students to reflect that night on what they would remove from the world if they could. And so the next day he comes, and the first one says, I'd get rid of murder because it's the worst thing. And the next one says, I'd get rid of alcohol because it's the source of so much evil. I'd get rid of adultery. I'd get rid of, they all giving their things they'd take out of the world. And it got to the Saint Marquez Effendi, and he said, I would not take anything out of a world that God created for its purposes. And so that's just, I think, a very Muslim view of things, that there are wisdoms and God knows why. And there's a theodicy of the grand scheme of things, right? That we just don't know. But God does bring good out of evil, and then evil serves its purposes in that people rise up and oppose it, that people bear the burdens of oppression and still maintain faith in God. There's a wonderful, it's not a true hadith, but I like it anyway, that says anybody who reaches 80 years of age still believing in God is forgiven.
Well, I got a couple to go, so I'm almost there.
Yeah. But I think the idea, if you live long enough, you're going to see a lot of very troubling things.
That's a great one. I like that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not true, if it's not a real one, but I'll quote you. Yeah, no, that's very good. But the overarching point, though, is that either God knew or didn't know the amount of evil in the world when God created the universe. I mean, and once you reach that nodal point, you have to make a choice.
Yeah, and one of the things that I find really interesting, like I've been in a lot of places in the world, and the people I've seen that suffer the most often have the most profound belief in God. And the people that sit around with their kind of wine, cheese, and crackers discussing evil, and why I don't believe in God, they actually very often have wonderful lives. And so there's kind of an irony in that.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I'm not sure that gives an answer to the question. I mean, it's kind of a sociological
observation.
Yeah, and it's fair. It's a fair one. I just think that there needs to be a coherent approach to God. I mean, if I'm going to believe in God, then we need to have a coherent approach, and to shirk from the idea that God is omnipotent and omniscient, and yet distinguish, and yet the evil is something that God has allowed in order for us to have free will, with the free will defense, the theodicy of free will.
That's
a classic defense in terms of we needed that.
And that only deals with moral evil. It doesn't deal with natural evil.
Exactly. And it doesn't deal that effectively with moral evil.
Because now we have sociologists. I mean, that's one of the things Dostoevsky points out, is that the time is coming when they'll tell us there is no crime, because the sociologists are going to say, well, the reason they did this is, so there's kind of a hard determinism that says, oh, that criminal couldn't have done anything else given the life that he was given. So there are those arguments. And again, I personally believe there's compelling arguments on both sides, and you have to make your choice. I've chosen the side of God, and other people chose the side of either nothingness, randomness, or the side of the devil.
Well, I hope I'm not in the latter category.
It doesn't seem like that, but yeah, it seemed like a mensch.
Hamza,